Hi everyone. Today we're going to be talking about Geometry Lesson 6.3, Conditions for Parallelograms. So take a minute and try to remember Geometry Lesson 6.2 and all of the facts that we had about parallelograms, because the facts in this lesson will be closely related to them. So pause the video, try to remember as many as you can, and then press play to see the facts that we're going to be using in this lesson. This lesson focuses on proving that a shape is a parallelogram. So to show that a quadrilateral is a parallelogram, you only have to show one of the following facts. Both pairs of opposite sides are parallel. That means that in a parallelogram, you know that this side is parallel to this side, and you know that this side is parallel to this side. And the symbol that we use for parallel looks like little arrows. So you'd have a little arrow here and a little arrow here. Okay, and then you'd have two more arrows on this side and two more arrows on this side. The next fact states that one pair of opposite sides are parallel and congruent. So that means that for these two horizontal sides, I would know that they're exactly the same length, so they would have tick marks on them. Okay. And I would know that they're parallel to each other. So they have to be both parallel and congruent. Now it would also work on the vertical sides, but you just need one pair that's both parallel and congruent. Next is both pairs of opposite sides are congruent. That means that the two horizontal sides have tick marks on them, and then the two vertical sides have tick marks on them. Okay. The next one is that both pairs of opposite angles are congruent. That means that the angle over here is going to be equal to the angle over here, and there will be arc marks to show you that. And then you'll also know that this angle is congruent to this angle. So you have to have arc marks in both pairs of angles before you know that they're congruent and before you can say that this is a parallelogram. The next fact says one angle is supplementary to both of its consecutive angles, meaning that if I know this angle measurement here, it will add to 180 with this angle here and with this angle over here. So you need to know both. So maybe this is 50 degrees, and I would need to know that this is 130 degrees because that would be 180. And then I would have to also know that this one is 130 degrees. So one angle is supplementary to both of its consecutive angles. Finally, the last fact says that the diagonals bisect each other. So if I had a diagonal drawn here and a diagonal drawn here, they would be cut in half. So this part of that diagonal would be equal to this part, and this part of the diagonal would be equal to this part over here. So those are our facts. Now let's take a look at an example question where we're going to apply these facts. So make sure you have these facts written down, because what we're going to do is we're going to show that one of them is true, and then we just pick which fact it is and we write it down. In example 1a, it says to show that ABCD is a parallelogram when x is 7 and y is 4. So step 1 is to look at the given information and determine which fact might work. So notice they've given us an expression for BC and an expression for AD. They've also given us an expression for AB and CD. So pick a fact that might work, and then we're going to just show some work to show that it's true. So I think the fact that will work is the fact that opposite sides are congruent. That's the fact that I'm thinking. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put x into this expression and this expression. So 7 goes in, And then I'm going to put the y value, the 4 in for the y's, here and here. And I'm going to see that BC is 21 and AD is 21. So they're congruent, those opposite sides. Then I'll find out that AB is 16 and CD is 16. So I know those opposite sides are congruent. So I do have both pairs of opposite sides being congruent. So the last step is to actually write that down. Okay, so I showed my work, and you have to show your work on these questions. It's very important. I've written down which sides are congruent. Now my last step is to say that both pairs of opposite sides are congruent, so it's a parallelogram. And I need that last sentence. It's very important because that gives the reason as to why this is a parallelogram. Let's do another example. In example 1b, it says show that EFGH is a parallelogram for z equals 11 and w equals 4.5. So step 1, look at the given information and determine which fact might work. You're going to try to do step 2, put the numbers in and find values. And step 3, draw a conclusion. So pause the video, try and do all of the steps, and then press play to check your answer. So I noticed that they only gave me 3 angles. They didn't tell me about angle E. So I'm thinking that the fact that will work is angle G could be supplementary to both angle H and angle F, because that's the fact that's about 3 angles and not about 4 angles. So I'm going to start off by putting in 11 for Z in both of these expressions and 4.5 for W in this expression. So when I calculated it, I found out that angle F is 118, angle H is 118, and angle G is 62 degrees. And please notice that 118 plus 62 is 180. So that means that they're supplementary. So G is supplementary to H, and G is supplementary to F. So I can say that since angle G is supplementary to both of its consecutive angles, this is a parallelogram. So you have one more question to try. Try and do this one all on your own, and then we'll review it. So we're going to show that PQRS is a parallelogram for A is 2.4 and B is 9. So you're going to follow those same steps. Decide on a fact that might work, put in the values for the variables, and then draw a conclusion based on what you get. So we're going to pause the video here, do that, and then press play to check your answer. So I put in the measurements for A and B. I found that QP is 16.8 and RS is 16.8. So these two sides are congruent, QP and RS. Now I also put in B for angle Q and angle R in these expressions. I found out that angle Q is 74 degrees and angle R is 106. They're not congruent, but 74 plus 106 is 180, so they are supplementary angles. Now, the only fact that talks about one pair of sides being congruent is the one that says one pair is both congruent and parallel. So that told me I need to figure out why these lines are parallel. And I remember from chapter 3 that because these two angles are supplementary, then the lines are going to be parallel by the converse of the same side interior angles theorem. So QP is going to be parallel to RS because this angle is same side interior with this angle. It helps if you imagine long lines here, 1 and 2, that we think may be parallel. And then this is our transversal here. Okay, so you can see that they're same side interior angles. So we have one pair of sides that's both parallel and congruent, so this is a parallelogram. Okay, so there's another video to watch. That's it for this one. Please make sure to write down any questions you have and send them to me.